Welcome to In Great Company. This is the podcast where we explore how thriving businesses build relationships at scale. Hosted by Sindhu Srivastav and Danielle Tourette, we sit down with top executives to uncover the strategies that create stronger connections, engage teams, and lasting success. Let's dive in.
Hello, I'm Sindhu Srivastav.
And I'm Danielle Tourette,
your host for In Great Company. Together, we engage in conversations with business leaders to explore their strategies for connecting their companies to their customers, employees, partners, and shareholders.
This episode is brought to you by We Crush Events, your ultimate partner in corporate event planning. At We Crush Events, we do just that, crush events. We know that a company's event is a reflection of its brand, and we're here to make sure that it's nothing short of perfect. Whether you need help sourcing vendors, venues, or a full-scale all-hands-on-deck approach, our expert team has the skills and connections to bring your vision to life. And the best part, there are no planning or production fees, just seamless, stress-free event execution. Make your next event unforgettable. You can contact us at www.wecrushevents.com/contact us.
Today, we have an amazing guest. We have Randi-Sue Deckard, who is a dynamic leader in the go-to-market strategy and a growth innovator. Currently, Randi-Sue is the SVP of Growth at BESLER. She has a unique blend of sales, operations, and leadership, and is currently recognized as one of Sprout's 25 women in GTM to watch for 2025. She's also the founding member of Wednesday Women and co-chairs the Pavilion DFW chapter, that's the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter, where she champions leadership development, cross-functional collaboration. Her passion for continuous learning and her commitment to empowering others make her a standout figure in tech and business communities, and we can't wait to pick her brain today.
Super excited to be here.
Yes.
Awesome.
We are super excited to chat with you, Randy. I know that when we had our last conversation, you and I completely geeked out over our connection on how obsessed we are with Tony Robbins and how we love motivational and inspirational speakers. So we're going to kind of get into that later, talk all things vision boards, goals, geek out over that. But we're really excited to just kind of dive in, learn a little bit more about you and then interrogate you just a little bit. So Sindhu, I'll let you kick it off.
All right, so Randy, here is our first question to you. From clinical science to growth strategy is kind of like a distinctive career pivot. So tell us more about that. Like, how does a clinical scientist become somebody who is in go-to-market, sales and marketing suddenly? What drew you to that world?
It's a great question that, at the time I was on this path from clinical science to actually be a forensic pathologist. I thought what I really wanted to do when I grew up. And one of my mentors, as we're performing autopsy, was like, what are you doing in the basement in the morgue? You have so much personality, charisma. Have you considered another side of healthcare, the commercial side? And I was fortunate enough to, have that conversation with someone else saying, hey, my mentor mentioned that maybe this isn't the path that I should take. And I just had never considered business. Because I put that out in the universe, as woo-woo as that may sound, literally within a month, I had connections refer me into a startup. Guess what? Selling to pathologists. So that was my first commercial role. And of course, who knew pathologists? And that first year they said, hey, can you do 2 million at this startup? I did 5. And they're like, hey, if you can do that, can we give you a team? And I think my superpower was taking from the science background, so that system level thinking, being data driven. Failure is not my vocabulary. Experiment is, and making good decision based on what happens. And of course, what do we do in go-to-market all the time? We have a strategy. we execute, and then you refine and iterate. And that's literally what experimentation is. But I also think, like I said, that data part is so crucial. Just because that's the way my brain works. I want to understand how everything works together. And that's really what helped propel me. And after that, like first, hey, we'll give you a team. I never stopped. I just had progressive advancements. And I think it's because super curious as a scientist. How does everything work? How does everything fit together? And I wasn't, even though I had a lane, I never really stayed in my lane. But that's how you get better, right? Is like, how does what I do impact you? And so I built a team, even though they may not directly report to me, I built a team that would communicate with me, inform me. And so I could always make better decisions because I understood what was going on in the business, that more than anyone else who like literally just stayed in their lane.
I love it. Data and staying in your lane. You and Sindhu are two peas in a pod. That is so
That's why I'm probably here, right?
Yeah.
We hit it
You
off.
could talk for hours about data, and I'm like, yawn. Next. But I love the word experiment. That's an interesting word to use, and I like that word instead of failure. I think that's clever.
Right.
Which kind of takes me into I guess the next question, which is can kind of tie into that. I guess tell us about a day in the life. I think people would be curious of what is an SVP of growth? What is a day in the life? And is your day-to-day spent more on the strategy or putting out fires? And I would say maybe the putting out fires is where that word experiment comes into play.
Sure. So, in my role, I'm over sales, marketing, customer success. So I just basically say I own the customer journey. And that is, obviously with marketing, we're building brand awareness, all the way through that life cycle. It's funny you brought up the word experiment earlier, and commented on it because when I talk to my CEO, I do not use that word. That makes him a little nervous. But what I do say is this is what we are going to do first, and depending on the outcome, we may refine and do next. So just a caveat to the audience, be careful because some people don't like the word experiment, especially when it's against resources and allocation. It makes them
Oh my God, in Silicon
nervous.
Valley, if you don't use the word experiment, they're gonna be like, oh, what are you talking about? Like fail fast, like move fast and break things fast.
Yeah. So I guess it just depends who you're talking to. So just know your audience.
Yeah.
But my day-to-day is definitely strategy is a component, but once again, being a scientist, I have a framework and a discipline that is done quarter by quarter. So we have like short-term things that I'm looking at, and then long-term things, which is more the strategy, right? And it's about refining and iterating continually. So I am like deep nerd data, and I've leveraged AI. So back in the day, before we had AI that could look at the data and kind of feed me insights and summaries of insights based on what I care about, I had to do that manually. And now that I have that, it actually has freed me up to what I call people more, wherever I can people. And so that's, talking to leadership, talking to customers, talking to my team, wherever I can people, like that's where I like to spend most of my time. And honestly, AI has helped significantly with strategy, coaching, et cetera. Because like a lot of things I have on autopilot now, like competitive intelligence, market industry insights, that literally is automated. I have a custom GPT and Make. It goes out, looks at competitors, updates battle cards, and then sends me an email. Hey, I updated XYZ. And then I can take a look at it and decide how I'm going to communicate that to the team. So that is where I like to spend most of my time is peopling.
That's amazing, Randy. That's amazing. So it looks like you've really like led high performing teams in fast-paced environments. I heard you like say a couple of things. I heard you say, I'm not one to stay in my lane, A. And then as I'm hearing you speak, I'm hearing you say AI, automation, a competitive data. And to me, that requires resources to set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll speak as a female leader myself, which is that I've always been a little bit like wrist slapped for not staying in my lane. And yet, like we know it's a catch-22 because if you stay in your lane, you can't like really innovate and excel. And yet, like there is this expectation that, oh, you have to follow the rules. So talk to me a little bit about the dichotomy, how you manage that, and like have you been wrist slapped ever? Is one thing. And the second thing is, as you're moving outside of your lane, some of it is seeking resources because how does one person humanly do so many things? What are your strategies for earning, investing, getting the budget to invest in resources to really like paint the canvas that you need to paint?
Yeah, so that first off, have I got my wrist slapped? 100%. As it relates to like my function, like go to market, I have, done things and then shown the ROI. As an example, last year, we were using AI specifically in marketing, and I didn't really talk about it up to leadership. But what I did is at the end of the year, showed them that literally we had 3 digital twins in marketing that we had deployed for AI. So we didn't have to hire FTEs. And they're like, okay, if you can do that here, like, what are the other areas of the business? And so they added me to the AI governance committee. And so once again, not staying in my lane, but being able to impact the business is how I've been able to elevate myself and get invited to those conversations. And that's how you end up, as in executive roles, is if you can give yourself a seat. I gave myself a seat by doing something without asking, right? Depending on your company, obviously, whether it's bootstrapped, how much resources do you have? One of the things I will stress is that whatever you're going to do, you have to look at your processes first and audit them. You don't want to ask for resources or put in tech or add people until your process is at least well baked and or repeatable. Otherwise it will amplify it. You can bring in tech and like if you have bad data, garbage in, garbage out. If you bring in AI and you have a bad process, it will amplify it, right? So I think those are just some things that you really need to be cautious of. And I also think it's my personality, super curious, don't like to stay in my lane, but I know that everyone is in sales in the company and everyone impacts the customer. And so by owning like the end-to-end customer, I kind of have this dotted line, or in my head, I have this dotted line to serve the company better. I need to have those conversations with those other leaders in those areas. And like I said, get a seat at the table. And how I do that is by showing them other ways. So I hope that
No, yeah, I
resonates.
actually want to push you on a couple of things though.
Sure.
So, you said you had your wrist slapped. So let's like, a little bit dig into that a bit. What are your strategies when you do get your wrist slapped? Like how do you navigate that? How do you look at that?
Yeah. So, I always think about who it's coming from and why. Why was my wrist slapped? Did I harm the business? Yes or no? And then what is that person's motivation for slapping my wrist? And I'm not saying that this is not from a place of ego, but it's just understanding why I triggered someone to slap my wrist. If I haven't harmed the business and it's actually helped the business, but I didn't stay in my lane, I'm like, okay, next. Like it's not that I don't take it seriously, but I've helped the business, right? So sometimes you're not crazy, you're going to get in trouble. You're just first because you're pushing the envelope. And, one of the things that I have said to all of my leadership as I've been hired at companies, or my working mantra is that, look, if you wanted a yes person, you shouldn't have hired me. And this is how I operate. I am curious. I am going to ask a lot of whys. And if I see a gap in the business and it's not being addressed, I'm I'm going to find a way for us to fix it because, yes, I have my own P&L. Yes, I have my own people. But ultimately, if we look at our whole company P&L, I still have a duty if I see something that can make a difference to say something. And that's just the way, that's my personal operating system. And I share that with leadership and my peers who I work with. That helps some. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if I haven't harmed business, I just like, okay, and how can I work better with this person next time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a
No,
lot of
thank
like
you.
shopping the halls, right? Like you
Yeah.
can kind of shop the halls and like figure out, like how you can bring people in and along. But sometimes you have to get your wrist slapped because the organization needs a shakeup. And I'm the only reason I am where I am is because I've taken those risks and experimented.
Yeah. I think we have three women in this room who can attest to that, which
Yeah.
is sometimes you just have to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, we have a saying at our company, which is know your truth, but don't confuse it with the truth. So
Hmm.
everyone's going to have a truth, but then there is a the truth that's bigger than everything else. And as
Hmm.
long as you're giving thought to it, I mean, it's fine. Like, it's
Right.
okay. People make mistakes and you can move forward, right? Awesome. DT, I think you have the next question.
Yeah, so you've talked a lot about processes. Like you're obviously an expert at creating processes so that you can go people more, which is what I love. I love relationship building too. So on the people side, I guess, you gave yourself a seat, right? Which I love that. How are you coaching? What's your leadership style? How do you help build culture? And ultimately, how are you coaching those that maybe want to get a seat? What is your strategy in terms of leadership to get that culture to where you want it to be or where they want it to be?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand people's why that you work with. And one of the things that I do with staff who directly report to me is we twice a year do a workshop. And that workshop is around goals. And it has nothing to do with the company. And what I mean by that is, I really want to understand why people are here at the company, what is motivating them to show up every day. I have one person who is expecting another baby, wants to buy a bigger house, and that really motivates them. So, number one, understanding people's why, and personalizing, like, and reminding them, especially the tough times of, what they want to accomplish and what they're doing, and tying that to our mission, and also what are their career objectives. I have people who love being an individual contributor, have no desire to lead. So how can I make them the best at what they do? It's, to me, that's an opportunity to challenge them in different ways because a lot of people get comfortable. So one of my sayings is lean in and buckle up because success is messy. What worked before isn't always going to work now. And so I'm always challenging them to reframe, getting them to think so they answer back with how they should proceed. It's not me giving them the answer. But once again, if you're good at sales, you're good at the questions that are a couple layers deep, and that comes from understanding the person. So you can ask some questions and kind of lead them to answer themselves so they have that revelation because it's more meaningful than me just telling them.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. And Sindhu, I'll hand it back to you. But this just kind of the one question I wanted to ask you, which this kind of jumps into that is, it sounds like you're having these very vulnerable conversations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get them to, open up about their kind of personal goals? How do you get them there? And then you and I totally talked about how much we love vision boards, and I believe in them. I have them up in my office all the time. I do one every single year. Tell us about what do those goal setting sessions kind of look like when you're, getting them to
Sure.
open up?
So, as a leader, I show up authentically. And when I say authentically, I share my mistakes. I am not perfect, in hindsight. This is why we're doing this. This is why we're changing. You cannot communicate enough. And I think actions speak louder than words all the time.
Yeah.
And I have given my team, like, if my actions are and my words do not match, call me on it. Like, we have to hold each other accountable. And that is, my promise to them. Because I said, it really matters to me. And anyone who works with me knows I have a lot of integrity. So that's really important to me. My word is my bond. So you create this safe place in order to have those really candid conversations. Sometimes at our workshops, like we go from laughing to crying, right? And it's because we can truly share. And I share all the things. So we literally for 3 hours twice a year go through this goal setting workshop, and it's a bit of conversation. Set aside some time for them to think, share, and then we're also doing I bring in tools like visualization. We all have, a big ass calendar. You can't see it, but I was pointing.
I have that too.
It's over here. Yeah. Takes up all the wall. And then we're constantly checking in with others. So we hold each other accountable. It's not just those 2 sessions, right? And we also do book clubs. So it's like whatever I can do that I think will tie into what I've learned in those workshops. And so even though those happen twice a year, how can I bring things in so we can keep it relevant? Because as we all know, with training, you have to keep things that are important front of mind, and you got to do it in a fresh, innovative way. So we do other workshops, but it may be something side related to what was brought up, but it does tie into what we discussed, and that way, like I said, it's still links and anchors what we talked about. And it's interesting. I also do quarterly reviews. I don't wait till the end of the year. We obviously meet weekly, but I also do quarterly reviews. And as part of those quarterly reviews, we kind of sync back on the workshop and, has anything changed? And having that cadence. Like I said, I feel like I'm quite close to my team, and so I can stay ahead of things that, whether they need additional support or something's pivoted and I need to change my approach with the team.
No, that's actually fantastic, Randy. A couple of things that really stood out to me is the word that's coming to me is intentionality. It's not like, oh, culture is like put a bunch of people together. Somehow they all know their goals once you set their goals. And then you can be like, yeah, see you later at the end of the year. It's like that constant touching base. And also the book club is almost like, to me, sounds like building a set of shared values. Like, what is it that we all can rally together on? And the third thing that really stood out to me was actions and words. And Rani, I can't remember. Are you a mom?
Yes, I have 2, 26 and 24.
Exactly. And all of us are moms here in this room. And I learned this. It blew my mind when I learned it, which is that my kids learn so much more by watching me than engaging, because I'm like, how is it that I have a debate champion and a spelling bee? Like, both of my kids are straight A students and whatever. And we're not one of those tiger mom households at all, or tiger dad households at all, right? Like, I mean, there is no, what are your grades today or whatever. We check like maybe once every 2 weeks just to be like, hey, are you on track? And like, it blows my mind when I see all those A pluses and whatever outstandings. And I'm like, really, my kids? And then it like comes back that they watch us every single day, right? Giving our best to everything we undertake, like, having a great work ethic, whether it is cooking them dinner versus how we show up to work. And that's exactly right. Like, action speaks so much louder than words. And in fact, like, I would argue that if you act well, you almost don't need to speak. Right?
Yep.
So that's awesome. All right. So, Randy, the other thing that really strikes me about you is not just intentionality with your team, but intentionality with your community as well. Like you and I met, quite by accident in Dallas at the Pavilion Happy Hour when I was stuck there on my way to the CMO Summit. So, really, how many communities are you involved with, and how has your involvement with communities like Wednesday Women and Pavilion kind of influenced just like your internal culture, but also your community culture?
Yeah, so I think it's really important. I'm just going to say one word, diverse, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in, obviously Pavilion is a, executive community. It's global. And while I'm in healthcare, tech, it's not just healthcare, right? And so I think it's really important to be in diverse communities. So as a leader, you can remove biases, but also learn from others. And then it's always about what can I take from what I just learned from what they're doing in their industry or their business and apply it? How does that make sense in my industry and my business, right? And just having that curiosity, could this work? The other community that you mentioned is Wednesday Women, and that's really because, look, we're all women here. We could all share, I'm sure, a plethora of battle stories, whether it's girl on girl crime, which I think is far worse
Yeah.
than, just being the only woman at the table or in a room of 50, as we were discussing before we got on the call. So that's really important to me. I have a daughter. And I want to, lift other women as I rise and make sure that other people have opportunities just like I did, and just, continue that. The other community that I'm in, that I'm fairly active in, is women in sales. And once again, they have an executive leadership alliance. So it's, like I said, just once again, different industries. But like I said, I just learn so much when I have this diverse community. And that helps me because, like, my data, my corporate job, in healthcare, I'm talking to CFOs, I'm talking to VP of finance, but lots of times things come up that they need that I don't offer in my company. But having this diverse network, that's the power. We were talking earlier about connection and community. If I can just be helpful and have an impact, it's not always going to be immediate dollars to my company, but people buy from people. And that's the value I bring, is like, how can I help you in your career? Sometimes when I meet with people, they just want to know, like, how are you leveling up from a leadership perspective? How are you investing in yourself to show up? Because I see you all over the place. How do you find the time to, like, hey, do you know anyone who does this? We're looking at, implementing AI. I don't even know where to start. I'm embarrassed. I haven't even used AI. So, like I said, having that diversity, I think, really helps you as a leader really drive value to the people you interact with, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely. I think, the point to stress here again is, you have your own experiences, your own perspective, but then that's one person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, put together a ton of people who have their own experiences, their own perspectives. They're not going to be, even if you like, even like I was born in a small town in India, pick any two people in my small town, brown women, look like me, completely different experiences.
Right.
Like, that is diversity right there. And then it's about taking what's precious to you and then also saying, okay, like maybe this is for some other time, but like exactly right, that whole community. And that's what we're trying to build at We Crush events as well. It took me a long time to learn as a very transactional techie, right? Because I was all about like, can you give me the next promotion or can you help me hit some of my annual goals? But that's not it, because in my pursuit to like transaction with a person, like I've just like, it's almost like saying, oh, I'm going to look at a painting as red or yellow without looking at the entire, like what's the story behind the painting, right? So I completely get it. DT, you're next.
Yeah, it's Cindy's the networker of all networkers. And speaking of vision boards and big ass calendars, that was something that was a big focus of mine this year, is just leveraging my community more. You know what I mean? Being more active on LinkedIn and coaching our team to utilize those tools more, because you can get burnout on cold calling and emailing. And it's like, let's leverage the resources we have. So that's a big one of mine. And I love to hear, how active you are. And I'm excited, that's kind of how we all met. And that's how this came to fruition, which is interesting. I want to go back a little bit, love the goal setting, love that conversation. you're talking about the quarterly reviews, which I love how you do the quarterly reviews and revisit those personal goals. What do you do when kind of maybe things aren't going according to plan? Maybe there's an underperformer or something needs to pivot or change. What's your approach or strategy to keep momentum
Sure.
and morale?
Right. So first off, because I meet weekly, I always tell whoever I'm meeting with, like the official quarterly performance, it should never be a surprise, right? It's things that we have already talked about, but this is formal, you know, um, discussion.
Yeah.
So like I just want to be clear on that because it should never be a surprise. It actually just helps me course correct quicker. And one of the things that I've done is, number one, especially because I have people on my team who are directly responsible for revenue generation. And people are my true north and people are my strategy, is that people are more than their number, right? If someone is underperforming, understanding why, and where, and what can I do to support, remove a roadblock, and is it something in our process, like, what have we done to, make this person successful or be successful in how they accomplish, the business goals that have been set out for them. And first off, you need to have realistic goals in order for that all to happen, right? Let me just say that too. Been at companies where, handed a number, and not realistic. Yeah. I get to own and create the number, so I have a lot more control over that now. And I have had to let people go over the course of my leadership tenure, and it's because it ended up being that they weren't coachable. Like if someone is coachable and they're showing improvement, I will find ways and resources to ensure that they are successful. That is my job, to make you successful, but people have to meet me, right? If someone's not willing to meet me and put in the work, I can't help you. And that's when I will cut someone.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
do you define, sorry, Sindhu, do you define because to me, in my mind, coachable is more like positive thinking person, right?
Mm.
Is that
It's
how
it's
you
it's
define
it's
coachable?
it's open.
Okay.
Hey, I hear you.
Yeah.
I see that this is an opportunity, and I try and get people to articulate, just like we were talking before about, not giving them. So what do you think happened there? Why do you think you're not, based on XYZ? Getting them to critically think why they may not have, and if you can have that conversation and they can come to the realization, okay, and then this is how we're going to work on it, and you have that commitment from them, and then they're showing up and like, I really want to improve, 100%, like I will work with them and we will make things happen, because you can tell when someone is in it versus someone's like not in, literally they've shut down, they don't respond, or it's short answers. I've had people, it's like, they literally just shut down because they're overwhelmed. Giving people a chance to pause and catch up, but you can only do that for so long, right? And then you have to like maybe this isn't the right role for you if you cannot handle or pivot. And I talk about, I say this all the time to my team. If you don't like change, you don't want to work for me, and you don't want to work for this company, because what we do on a daily basis in revenue growth is change management. That's what sales is change management. It's talking to customers or potential customers and getting them to do something differently by working with you than what they're currently doing. We are in change management. And if you cannot handle that, this is not the role for you. So whether you're marketing, sales, CS, this is what we do on a daily basis.
yeah.
So if where I've hired, I kind of have that built into the hiring process. Like, are you coachable? How do you handle change? How do you handle resilience, pivoting? I have that baked in, but where, I've come in and maybe inherited a team, that's maybe where there's been more challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Randy, I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense, right? Like I look at coaching as a two-way street as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes both ways. Like DT will tell you how many times she's had to coach me,
Mm-hmm.
even in our working relationship or the other way around, because it's that, hey, this is working well, this is not working well. Now what can we do to
Mm-hmm.
make this better? And as long as the discussion is flowing and is positive and is constructive, right? Like, I mean, we're able to have a meaningful discussion and you can sense the resentment. Like, people forget that just by short answers, they feel like there's no energy left hanging in the room. But
Right.
there is so much energy left hanging in the room because it shows, are you open? Are you resentful? Are you cutting people off? Like, who are you being? It's a lot of non-verbal communication, and we already know like 97% of communication is non-verbal,
Mm-hmm.
and it requires that sense of maturity to say, okay, is this coachable or not? The one question I have is this, right? I've had team members, and unfortunately, many of them have been women. And some of the feedback that's come to me as a leader is that, oh, they're too aggressive, they're stepping over something else, and whatever, right? Like they are. The feedback kind of boils down to they're not playing by the rules and they're aggravating me in their approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes I have to really look at, again, who's it coming from and why they're feeling this way. And sometimes the answer is patriarchy. Have you had some of that happen to you, and how do you
Yes.
deal with that?
So I'm like laughing. I was at a global health tech company and I got pulled into HR, and I was over a new business unit. We had a very aggressive revenue goal, and I was told that I was pushy. Those were the exact words. And I was like, can you give me an example? And, you know, it was coming from, product, because I had asked about dates that we had committed to customers and, told them expectations. And I was pretty direct. Like we as an organization, like it wasn't personal. We as an organization committed to having this done by this date, and it's not. So when are we going to execute on it? Because now I have to go back to the customer, and, this is my reputation that is not just the company, but my reputation, my word that has been damaged. Like, you need the date that you give me needs to be accurate. I want one date. And I was told that I was being pushy. You know, I think that, it's really one of the things that I've had to learn is it's not that I need to change who I am, but sometimes maybe it's the words or tone, because I know I can be direct. And then sometimes, like I shared earlier, OPO, it's like, you know, we as an organization made a commitment. Like, my saying that was not personal to that person. It was, we as an organization made a commitment to customers to have this ready by X. We failed. Now it's my job to communicate that. I'm not going back with a date and then changing it again. So the date you give me better be like, I don't care if it's longer, but I'm only going back once.
Yeah. No, and I think that is so important, and especially in a complicated world,
Mm-hmm.
to understand. A couple of things always stand out to me. Always assume good intent,
Mm-hmm.
which is that if somebody is asking you, and especially as a woman, sometimes you're expected to be the nurturer, the
Mm-hmm.
soft one, go politely without like disturbing anybody.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I'm known. I mean, the reason that I get hired is, because I get shit done, I execute, right? And you cannot execute and get shit done
Yeah.
if you are, you know, people pleasing. And there's a difference between, like, I am a very nice, gregarious person, But like when we got stuff to get done, and if you've made if the organization has made a commitment, it's not personal. It wasn't against that specific person and product. It was as an organization, we made this commitment. So as a team, your product needs to tell my team sales when this will be ready. And we're not going back and forth with the customer. We're not going to go back and communicate 3 different more times that this date has moved.
Yeah.
You need to look at all the risks. That is like your job and your expertise, not mine. It's my job to now handle the cluster of, communicating to the customer of when it's going to happen and what we're doing in the meantime, because we have to deliver value, and we did not deliver value like we said we would.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this goes back to saying again, like, is this good by the business or not?
Yeah.
And if it's not good by the business, like no amount of niceness is going to fix that.
Sure.
So it's literally like, I mean, show up and do what's right in the big picture.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the mistakes that I made at that organization is typically when I'm hired, I literally share my personal operating system, with everyone, and it gives them an opportunity to comment. I have a bit of a potty mouth, and if you don't like that, let me know, and I'll rein it in. I can be direct. Realize everything I do, it's never personal. It's not against you. It's have we met client expectations? Did we say what we were going to do, and have we done the right thing for the customer? If any of those things happen, you're going to see full on Randy. And it's not against you. It's because it's my job to make sure that we deliver on our expectations. And I'm the one that is on the front, like the client, the brunt. So I need the team behind me to deliver. And I'm okay communicating things are going to take longer, but we only do that once, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love the grit. Love like the unapologetic, like here is who I am, now deal with it. Because, frankly, the number of women who come out and say that, I haven't seen them in the majority. And it's
I'm literally not for everyone. I have a hat here. I literally keep it on the side of my desk. It literally says, I'm not for everyone. And I remind myself of that on a daily basis. I'm not for everyone. Next. But before I come into an organization, I make sure that they're clear on who they're getting. I'm not a yes person. I'm going to challenge. I'm going to be curious why, and not challenge to get in your face, but if we can do this better, not only personally 1% better, but as an organization, as a scientist, Kaizen, like that quality process and always improving is part of my DNA. And the reason why every organization I've been in has seen revenue growth is not just because of what we sell, but I'm looking at the business of how we can be more profitable. And sometimes it's workflow, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's tech. That's just the way my brain works. And you can do a lot if you have those minute movements. They compound in the business. So yeah,
Amen to that,
everybody, but you're definitely for us. We love an outspoken.
I would say, can I just say,
not so many direct women on our team. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, and not for everyone, but for every successful business, I want to add, right? Because show me one business that's like been a pushover and has made it, and then I'll be like, okay, like then we can get on that train, but like clearly it doesn't exist. So fantastic. Randy, obviously you're in front of customers quite a bit, and we're all about building customer connections at scale, because we believe that that's the sustainable way to produce revenue, to produce profit. So how are you building customer connections at scale?
So to me, this is, first off, I think a lot of, if you just have sales, you're missing half the boat if you aren't holding hands or arm locked with customer success and the expansion and referrals and partnership movement. So what we've done in this organization and other organizations is leverage that. So at this company, 30% of our revenue comes from customer referrals. And those customer referrals come in a few different ways. They may come directly. We may have an inbound and it's like, hey, I was speaking to a peer and they said they're using you and I want to talk to you. Or it may be a customer says, hey, I was speaking to someone, go talk to this person. I think they're a good candidate. We hold thought leadership. Sometimes that's in person, everything from a dinner or a lunch or a webinar to virtual, where we bring peer to peer together. And it's always a mix of customers, non-customers, and there's that organic, as I say, referral built in there, partnerships. We can't be in every room. So if it's not a customer, it's got to be a partner who speaks about us, right? And those two things help at the front end, because if I am referred by either a partner or a peer, a customer, those typically have shorter sales cycles and they're larger value. Why? Trust is built in. Does it take a while to build that engine? Yes. But like literally, if you are intentional and start that from the day you start your business, you will, it will, like I said, it takes a little bit to get that flywheel going, but once you get it going, it is crazy how fast you can scale. Like the amount of inbound that we get is insane because
love it.
because
eyes are sparkling.
Because we have built this community that loves, like a community of raving fans, that whether or not we actually have an event or not, they're talking about us when we're not in the room, partners and customers.
Yeah. And do you invest in customer events to do this? How are you building this community?
Yeah. So literally one of my roles is through marketing is having events. So earlier in the year, I had 41 CFOs at a thought leadership lunch. We weren't selling anything. We literally pitched it as, here is a peer-to-peer opportunity. And it was selective invites to ensure that the people we invited, I knew some of the challenges they had, and it was easy. I'm like, hey, Bob, you want to talk to Mike? Like, so literally as they're, even beforehand, like, you guys need to connect because you have this problem. I think you should talk. And literally, a third of those peers were customers. Out of that, we got 10 demos like within like a day. Like after it ended, like 10 people wanted to demo with us. And then within a month to 6 weeks, we had another 7 requests come in. Hey, want to talk to you. Out of 41 people.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. Do we still have outbound and nurture? 100%. You got to stay relevant, but things like that are so crucial. We also do 2 webinars every month, and we also have a podcast. And we're strategic about who we invite to be on our podcast, be on our webinars, and then as an executive, I do a roundtable, 2 to 4 times a year, and try and bring higher profile guests in my industry on. We always have fun, and we always get people, afterwards, reach out to us before we've even sent the thank you for joining, email. So I would say we're doing something right.
Rani, if I were to dig in a little bit, like what's like really coming out to me is the power of storytelling, even, right? I really feel like for your story to be heard, the platform has to be right. Like 41 CFOs, it wasn't any Tom, Dick, and Harry. It was 41 CFOs with a certain problem, and you knew beforehand the background on what their problems were. And even if you didn't know the solutions, who could show them a solution, right? So the background was super important. So that's, to me, like that's pure gold. And it almost takes somebody like you investing, curiosity you brought up, right? Like being curious around what's this person all about? Like, why would they invest in something like this? Because an hour of a CFO's time is very precious. So why would they
100%.
show up? Like, why would they come? And either they're coming because it's a destination. Like, I mean, we can talk all about that. Like the Amalfi Coast, like
Yeah. Shameless plug. We Crush Events. Yeah.
I know, right? Like it's either the destinations got you or
Yeah.
like they have somebody like you like doing the gold digging beforehand to be
Yeah.
like, okay, here is where the mine is. Now let's go find something. That's amazing.
Two
But
more
like
questions.
this is
Yours and then
so
mine.
important and so rare that I want to dig into this. Like, how are you finding the time for this? Like, what is it about you or about any executive that wants to get to know their customers so deeply? Like, how would you define that quality? Is it a quality? Is it an action? Like, what skill is that?
Yeah, so honestly, in the last 2 years, I have been able to people more because of AI. So
Mm.
a lot of the things that was taking some of my, we all have admin in our day to day, right? And I have leveraged, and it's not just AI, but I have leveraged tech to the max where I can. So I can focus on peopling. So no more than maybe 2 to 3 hours max, is anything I have to do for admin. And even that is things that are served up to me. So I already shared my, the competitive intelligence. I literally get an email saying this is what has changed.
Yeah.
I do the same thing for coaching. I literally, based on calls and what's in the CRM, based on our frameworks. This is how you need to coach so and so before I go into the meeting. I'm prepped, right? So that's where I'm spending my admin time. The rest is peopling. And before I had AI and automation and some of the tech that I have, I'll be honest, it was like more 10 to 15 hours was admin and I wasn't peopling as much. And that's really where I attribute my success to. And then you and I were just talking about this earlier, prioritizing ruthlessly.
Mm.
I am intentional about how I spend my time. And I have always been intentional about how much time I spend in front of people. And, sometimes I get asked or pulled into other things. I'm like, if you want me to do this, this would suffer. Are you sure you really want me to do that? I can add that, but this is what will be impacted. And whatever I can do to prioritize people, be in front of people, that is what I do. And that's kind of like my rule of thumb. And then I do time blocks and, other things, but that's really how I approach.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's fantastic. DT, final question, and you can
Yeah,
wrap.
I mean, Randi-Sue, I was just going to say there's so many things I wrote down, so many notes I took. I'm sure people that listen, there's so many incredible things that you shared. I love you talked about change management is with your customers too. And I'm like, my brain never thought of it like that. That was so
Oh,
interesting.
I always say sales is
Yeah,
a conversation, but it's all around change management.
it's such
That's
a
how you
win
approach it.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, such an interesting thought on that. And then the peopling more, I think was super helpful. I mean, there's just so many things that we talked about. And I love I love your hat, That is hysterical. I love that so much. Okay, so last thing, of course, something fun, because you've been so open and honest. I'm sure you'll share one thing that's on your vision board that you're open to sharing on a public podcast. Tell us one of
Uh,
your goals this year.
so one of my goals this year, and I've been vocal about it, is just speaking more. I want to bring, authenticity into leadership and that you can show up authentically. We were talking earlier. I got glitter nail polish. I got like long eyelashes. Um, I want to be up on stage and show that, you can bring your whole self, whatever that is, glitter Randy, and still drive revenue, still make a difference and make an impact. So I just, like I said, want to speak more on stage, my truth, because I know it'll help other people as they rise. The more that you can be authentic and find an organization that celebrates you, does not just tolerate you, the more that you will thrive. And I have
Oh my
walked away from
God.
companies that did not tolerate me.
Perfect finish, because we have three authentic women on this, and this is exactly why. And you talked about hard-fought battles, Randy. I feel like one of my hardest fought battles is to show up as me. I'm like, I really don't care what parameters you have on what a woman should be and could look like. I'm not that. I'm me. So please, like, make space. And that's what We Crush is all about, right? Like, we literally tell every team member, this is the space for you to show up authentically, because we hire you because, again, we know that you in your original form will add value. Otherwise we won't hire you.
That's where the energy and passion comes from. And I think that's where a lot of leaders get it wrong. They when they coach, they don't coach to the individual. And that's why understanding, who they are, what makes them tick. And I have a lot of, like, we talked about processes, but a lot of the process are frameworks. Adapt this so it feels good to you and how you would speak, or how you would act or outreach. And, if it doesn't feel good to you and it doesn't feel, then let's find a different way. And like I said, I think that's where a lot of leaders get it wrong, is that you can have these guardrails, but that's it. They're guardrails, but let people flourish. Because if you let me have the opportunity to be in front of customer authentically, I guarantee you I will build raving fans, but you have to let me show up as me.
Yeah, amen to that, amen to that. And with that, I obviously, we're telling your story now, but like, your story deserves to be told like on big stages. So more power, you've put it out in the universe. Yes. So yeah, wishing you a ton of success in speaking engagements.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Randy.
Thanks for tuning in to In Great Company. Subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who values strong business relationships. Until next time, stay connected and keep thriving.